From Warrior to Witness, a Piney Grove teaching on Judges 7, Gideon's 300. It started down at Jack's Diner in Piney Grove, in what we call the Biscuit Boardroom. Deacon Buck had just finished explaining, loud enough for the whole room, that Achilles wouldn't last 5 minutes in there. Sword or no sword, Buck said. You put him in here with Miss Clara'd skin questions, and he'd be looking for a way back to Troy. Everybody laughed, but then Pastor Cone leaned forward and said something that settled the room. Fellas, that's the difference between a warrior and a witness. Now that got quiet. God reduces the numbers. Judges 7 verses 1 to 8. Gideon starts with 32,000 men. That sounds like a warrior story. Strength, numbers, advantage. But God says, you have too many. Too many? God cuts it down to 300. Now let's be honest, that doesn't sound like a strategy. That sounds like a loss. Unless God is doing something deeper. God wasn't trying to raise better warriors. He was raising clearer witnesses. Because if 32,000 win the battle, Israel says, look what we did. But if 300 win, there's only one story left to tell. Look what God did. God changes the weapons. Judges 7 verses 16 to 20. No swords mentioned in the victory moment. Instead, they carry trumpets, torches, clay jars. Now Buck would say, that ain't a fight. That's a parade. But that's the point. God strips away the kind of weapons that make men look strong and replaces them with things that make his power unmistakable. They break the jars. They lift the light. They blow the trumpet. And the enemy collapses in confusion. No bragging rights. No warrior glory. Just a story. God gets the glory. Judges 7 verses 21 to 23. The text says, every man stood in his place. They didn't charge. They didn't dominate. They stood and watched God win. That'll mess with a warrior mindset. Because everything in us says, do more. Be stronger. Take control. But God says, stand and let me be seen. Back to Jack's Diner. Pastor Cone looked around that table and said, Achilles needed a poet to make him remembered. Gideon's 300 became the story itself. Deacon Buck nodded slowly. So you're saying they didn't win 'cause they were strong? Cone smiled. They won because they made it clear who was. Old Mr. Jenkins added, anybody can swing a sword, but not everybody can tell the truth about where the victory came from. The shift from warrior to witness. That's the movement Scripture invites us into. Not from courage to cowardice, but from self-reliance to God-dependence. Not from action to inaction, but from spotlight on us to spotlight on Him. The warrior says, I will win this. The witness says, watch what God will do. Where this lands for U.S. Most of us still want to be the 32,000. We want enough strength, enough control, enough resources to make sure the outcome depends on us. But God keeps whittling things down. Strength we can't rely on. Plans that don't hold. Situations we can't fix. Until all that's left is this. A trumpet, a cracked jar, a light we didn't create, and a story we can't take credit for. Final word at the table. Buck pushed his plate back and said, well, I reckon I'd rather be one of the 300 than one of the 32,000. Possum grinned. Long as you don't have to carry the jar. Buck shot back. I'll carry it. Long as somebody tells the story right. Pastor Cone leaned back and said, that's the whole thing, right there. God doesn't just win victories. He writes stories that make His power unmistakable. And the real question is, are you trying to be the warrior in the story?
Down at Jackson Piney Grove, biscuits on the plate. Buck was talking loud again like he just couldn't wait. Said Achilles with his armor wouldn't last in here. Miss Clara'd asked him one good question, he'd disappear. We all had us a good laugh, coffee pouring strong, till Pastor Cone leaned forward, said, "Boys, you got it wrong. There's a difference you ain't seeing, plain as day and night, between a man who loves the battle and one who tells it right. From warrior to witness, that's the road we walk. Less about the strength we bring, more about the talk. Not look what I have done, but look what God can do. Cracked jars, little light, and a trumpet blowing truth. When the numbers all fall down and there's no room for pride, you'll find the Lord is strongest when we step aside. Yeah, the story ain't about us in the end. It's a shift from warrior to witness again. Gideon had 32,000 standing tall. Looked like surefire victory, no doubt at all. But the Lord said, "Son, you got too many, Lake just fighting. Gotta keep them by the bay." Then about town, just the 10,000 stand flint. Then 300 stood there, called for his name. Didn't make much sense to any man around, but God was setting up a story where his glory would be found. From warrior to witness, that's the road we walk. Less about the strength we bring, more about the talk. Not look what I have done, but look what God can do. Cracked jars, little light, and a trumpet blowing truth. When the numbers all fall down and there's no room for pride, you'll find the Lord is strongest when we step aside. Yeah, the story ain't about us in the end. It's a shift from warrior to witness again. No swords in their hands that night, just jars and a borrowed light. Broke what they let the dark let me see. The power was never them, it was always he. They didn't charge, didn't take control, just stood right there and watched him roll every fear and every foe away. Sometimes standing still is how you win the day. Back at Jack's, old buck just nodded slow, said, "So it ain't about how strong we go." Cone just smiled and said, "Now you're getting close, about making sure folks know who did the most." Old man Jenkins wiped his hands and said, "Anybody can fight, but hear what I just read. Not everybody tells it true when it's all said and done, but a witness points it back. The holier one lay for to witness, that's the call we hear when the fight gets thin and the end ain't clear. Not I held it all together, but he carried me through with a cracked old jar and a borrowed view. When your strength runs out and you got nothing left, that's where God starts writing what comes next. Yeah, the story ain't about us in the end. It's a shift from warrior to witness again. So if you're sitting there at your own Jack's place, wondering how you'll win this race, just lift your light and let him shine, and tell the story right every time.